Well, Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman made his second court appearance since being extradited to the U.S. Earlier today, he was transferred from a Manhattan jail to a courthouse in Brooklyn. He faces a mandatory life sentence for a list of charges, including money laundering and conspiring to murder his enemies. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid was in court where El Chapo was today in Brooklyn. So, Paula, tell us, what can you tell us about this?
This was the most security I have ever seen in a court hearing. When El Chapo came in, he was surrounded by 6 U.S. Marshals. Sometimes you have 1, maybe 2 at the most. There were an additional 5 at the door. There were so many security provisions here. We were even screened twice before getting in. We all know why we have those security precautions in place. El Chapo seemed curious about what was going on. He didn't look at the judge once, didn't seem interested in the proceedings, but he was curious who was in the gallery, who's in the jury box, and he was very excited to see his family. His wife was in the gallery along with some other associates and some members of their legal team. They have not been able to visit him in prison, and one of the things they're trying to get is more access to him.
And his wife lives in the U.S.?
I'm not sure exactly where she lives day to day. I believe she lives in Mexico, but she's here in the U.S. A lawyer said that she picked her up at the airport, brought her here. He was waving to her. He smiled. They made little faces at each other throughout the hearing. You know, you can't make this stuff up, but she's not charged with anything, and she held a little press conference after.
Now, you were telling me earlier he had the option of appearing via video link or in person, and he chose in person.
Yeah, the Department of Justice said, why should taxpayers have to pay all this money, the helicopters, closing down the bridges to transport him here for a status hearing? But his lawyers argued, and they're correct, he has the right to be here. And when he appeared last, he was very well behaved. He's not restrained. While he has a lot of escorts, he has no handcuffs, no shackles. And as long as he's well behaved, the judge said that he will let him continue to come to these hearings. And if you think about it, he's in solitary confinement 23 hours out of the day. This is pretty much the most exciting part of his week, his month. And as I noted, it's the only time he's been able to see his family.
Yeah, wow, I can understand why he would want a field trip heading out there. So how is El Chapo's defense lawyers handling this? I mean, there's such evidence against him. How do they try and counter that?
First of all, the question is who's going to be his lawyer? Because right now he has a federal public defender. People are like, wait a minute, he's a billionaire. He could afford to build a tunnel to get himself out of prison. I think he can afford an attorney. So they're currently fighting over that, whether or not he's entitled to that. Another problem is those federal public defenders, they've represented a lot of the people who are going to testify against El Chapo. So there's a little back and forth who will do the honors of representing him. He may get a private attorney, but that person, the best that they can do is just ensuring that he gets the best due process, the most aggressive representation. This case is a slam dunk.
Wow. And how long will this take, you think?
Probably about a year, maybe 2. There's just a lot of procedural things that they have to go through. This is not a death penalty case. It will not be a death penalty case. They had to waive that in order to get him extradited, but it'll take a long time.
Fascinating case. We'll hear more from you, I'm sure, in the weeks to come. Thanks, Paula.